And that's what you want to see, you know, right here. High turnover out front. George!
Those long arms in the Thunder.
That's just beautiful. Beautiful hustle.
George down the lane and the points. Now Jeremy Grant. Well, he ran into all kinds of contact, but found the open man. It's Paul George. Jeremy Grant, he had 4 against Cleveland. Corner 3, George.
Do that when Blake Griffin has the basketball. Cut, make yourself available.
Paul George, the 3.
One of the best defensive teams in the whole league, George.
Driving and scoring.
I think I see 6 Thunder defenders out there.
They've got too many men out. And they trying to overplay Paul George. George gets by him for a jam. George with a drive and a scoop and a score.
It's Ferguson because as George lines that one up and knocks it down. Crap cools off at least there. Now George goes around and Harris fouled momentarily.
And all that's coming from downtown, where they have 8 made threes already.
George splashes out.
And just a little bit at a time, you know, one play at a time, get what you want.
That'll be an and one if it goes. Not often you see Jeremy Grant not keep the player. Paul George, stutter step, and the foul. And that was the off the inbounds. George got the flyby, and that swishes home. Thunder can get a little closer here. Paul George, that is a 3, and it's a 10-point game. Midway through quarter number 4, George feeling it, still feeling it, make it 3, collected. Jeremy Grant with the steal. Here comes George. Lays it up and in.
Put pressure on the Nets.
Long ball, Paul George elevates, and the Thunderous dunk off the feed from Westbrook. In this 4th quarter.
Look at that, it's just hung up there, had elevation, hang time.
Thunder. Trying to dig even closer. George to the rim, the reverse is up and good, and it's down to 6. George, another 3? No. Adams back taps it to George. Drives, hangs, floats, counted it.
And that's the break you needed right there.
George between his legs, goes out, Allen hangs and scores! Right at the big man.
Either.
Shooter to get it into Westbrook. Westbrook over to George. George got the flyby. 3 on the way. He's good with 3.1 seconds. George gives the Thunder the 2-point lead.
Down to the game.
Oh, make that, yeah, it's 4th.
George.
No, 6 rebound. Oh, I'm sorry.
Here's George. Oh, that's George. Arenas back out. Paul George. The fake. The shot is good.
I don't think there's a steal.
Paul George on the run and he scores. He angles and then kicks it out to Paul George, who fires and buries one. You got to take that ball to the basket. Inside.
Terrence Ferguson guarding Mitchell, who turns it over, throws it right to Paul in transition, and Paul is able to much smaller Rubio. Gonna try to post him up. Now faces up and swishes that one home.
Touch that he shows.
George again got that call in the passing lane. Goes right at the rim, had the angle, and maintain a lead throughout this entire first half. Over to George. Wants the 3, got the 3.
Basketball in this second half is going to be important because the Jazz just don't give you a whole lot of possessions.
George splashes. Adams back taps it out to Ferguson. George, the reload, that's good. Paul George, another tray, he's 3 for 3. 28% of the game. As George dances, hand in the face, doesn't matter. Another Pierce shot right down the pipe. Now Westbrook got it blocked, I believe, by Favors, but there's Steven Adams saving it from going out of bounds. George, boy, he is on fire from downtown. In an array of ways. And now another steal. Paul George got one man to beat, but he leaves it up for Jeremy Grant.
So put it all out on the floor tonight. They don't play again until Sunday. It's Paul George on entry by Solomon Hill. Wesley Johnson comes in.
I think he went to throw it. He went to throw it and changed his.
George on the perimeter. Tried to bait the foul and then knocks down the 3. They're going to see whether George down the lane, banks it in more toward the rim. There he's at the rim. He's not going to miss that one. Counted in a foul.
Adams on the run. Paul George. It is a 5 and a run out for Paul George. It'll be Paul George going to the line. Frazier didn't touch him.
Jeremy Grant. Final 6 seconds here. Paul George, no fouling. Throws up a 3 and it's a touch shot.
Go to the wood, go to the deck right there. That's
Crossover and hit to make it a 6-point.
off the eyes behind his head to know that the double team is coming, and I know my guy is going to.
George for 3. His second triple of the night, 86th on the year, top 5.
Now Paul George is on the run. They can. Right down Main Street.
Shoot the basketball. You're going to have an advantage at the rim for the rebound.
And if you're Paul George, take it to the rim, as he does again. George feeling it for 3. Got it! His third trip. George with the blow-by. And gets it. That's 26 now for George. Ended by Torrey Craig, who held him to 1 of 12 on threes in their first meeting. George, what a beautiful finish. George on the hip of Harris, doesn't matter.
Is that sustainable?
Well, it wasn't last night.
I mean, the Clippers continue to rely on that 3 ball. It's Paul George and but you're right, there has to be some kind of balance to it. Paul George lines up another 3 ball.
And knocks down another. And Thornwell's the defensive player. This time, he gives contact, no call. There's Paul George, stampedes ahead, wants the 3, got the 3. Fouls are back in. Thunder stays down defensively. George gets behind the pack and soars for the flush. Up Rivers in his 6th year with LA. Paul George, catch fire 3. He stays on fire. In this 3rd quarter, George goes at a couple of defense players.
Historical run.
George dances. Paul George. It's in a couple of games.
Oh, absolutely, we got to keep this up.
George, right.
A turnover.
What do you want to see here from this Thunder offense to try to close this game out? Well, anytime you get a game-winning bucket at the United Center is Paul George. Lines up a 3 and pinballs that one in and out. Adams got behind the defense.
Slowly on Steven Adams in transition defense because he'll outrun you.
Wouldn't have even been a review 10 years ago. It was Paul George. And now the steal. Thunder want to get out. Stepping into a 3 is George, and he buries it from the left wing. So far in this first half. Leaves it off to George. Thought about that 3 instead. Spins on Arcidiacono. And
He hits what side of the backboard?
I thought it was the top of the backboard. The way that it popped up. Did you say smooth? You know, he calls
a pass as Wendell Carter Jr. tried to get it over the top.
Uh-oh. Line drive. Adams keeps the possession alive. George. Uh-oh. George, it's like old NBA jam. Paul George. See what he decides to do here already with 20 in the first half. Holiday, good defensive player on him.
I got the right guy with the basketball.
Got to the rim.
And there's Paul
George get hot. PG-13. He can get going quickly.
And again, Oklahoma City getting to the basket. Paul George now with 6. George lowers the shoulder, takes the bump, and draws the foul and scores the. And by that I mean near his average. I'll tell you one thing: the Kings are not going to win this game if they don't do a better job.
That this team is the #1 offensive rebounding team in the league. It's effort and energy.
Yep. Here's the kick out to Abrinas. Just 3 to the game for the Thunder. Ferguson, bad pass there. Turnover number 7. And here's a 3. And again, you said you're going to turn the ball up.
Hey, he's
the real deal.
Yes, he is.
Kings are in trouble right now. Make no mistake about it.
He is the real deal, too.
Well, yeah, he is. Scored 17 here in the first half. Look at that, a 13-0 run. Paul George now has 10. Let's see how Fox does on George. He blocked a shot earlier in this game, and he slaps it away there. And George,
Poised, ball gets knocked, does not get bothered at all.
and they're not getting a stop there. No disrespect to anyone else, but let's just call it the way it is. And there's Paul George with 30. Williams is on the All-Star Paul George. Well, he's not on him anymore. The basket is good. He's got 30 handy. And the Kings now are back down by 14. Paul George, 2 more for 36. Couple shots. He's been a factor in the paint. And this guy has been a factor walking. It's probably not going to happen because Russell Westbrook is in his 12th season. But if Russell Westbrook ever learns
up and down the court defensively, they're long. Grant going into the starting lineup this year has made a big difference.
Paul George, high floater.
And Bowler, we know this from the Utah Jazz, watching them this year, is when they're making threes, they're a very difficult team to beat.
Away from Mitchell. Inside the dish and the bucket. Grant
Given needed to be going strong. Go up and imagine you're in the dunk contest and go at the rim.
George in the corner. Back out, reset. The Paul George. Westbrook spreads the floor. George slaps away the hand of O'Neal and a whistle.
10 days ago.
Here's George. Inside, takes a jumper up and over the top of Gobert.
Fill it up.
George inside, off the glass.
Rubio in one half.
George inside, lays it in with the left hand. Westbrook to George. 17 first half points and continues on now with a 3-ball 20.
In his position at the center. Once it's locked in, that ball doesn't come out.
59% shooter. George runs inside on Gobert.
It's a big time move. Notice how he put his body into Gobert to eliminate.
And away by Adams. Utah turns it over. Paul George, a free one.
That's a killer.
George the rebound. Conley, front court. George fires up to 2.
I mean, you're flat out seeing some amazing athletes go at it tonight. And there's one of them right there.
30 for George. 30 points, 13 here in the third.
Wow, come on.
And Paul George on cue knocks down.
Well, that's got to be what, 3 missed.
And Paul George
3 threes.
Engel gives chase. Adams breaks free of Ricky.
Because you got to have Gobert being up with Paul George being as hot as he is. Would freed up Adams at the rim.
George has the ball, pulls the trigger.
That
41.
time they gave up the mid-range.
41 on George.
Well, someone's got to help Joe.
Paul George, again the jumper.
It's isolation. Listen, the guy's in the zone. He's his third.
That hot hand. First shot of the game. Nothing. George on the step back. Continues to feel it. This time it's
Step back 3.
just so silky smooth for Paul George. Picking up where he left off from a night ago. 7 early here in the first quarter. George going to work on the rookie. The Thunder inching closer up ahead. George soars and throws it down. Get above the rim. Forcing Tom Thibodeau and the T-Wolves to take a timeout. George, catch fire 3 from the corner. That's good. Back into the night.
Right now the energy level is picking up for the Thunder.
George got to the lane. How about Wiggins and Paul George? We got 2 guys that are feeling it. Go ahead at 17 until George hits the turnaround. See what George decides to do. Has yet to score in the third, and that's bucket.
Just probing the defense with the basketball, just seeing what's there.
Westbrook lines up the 3. That one right. Had it stripped on the way up. He thought he got fouled. George, the 3. That's good. Back-to-back threes for the Thunder. George thought about the 3. Backdoor cut. Westbrook left-handed reverse.
Now that your stops.
George, that ties it at 104.
Warriors in 6 of their last 7 games. Here's George in the paint. Gets the first shake. Paul George. And ball's taken away by Schroeder, and he gives George a little Christmas gift.
And Paul George, they've got their largest lead and doing it the way their formula works. Turn you over, get in transition.
Paul George hits his third.
And easy.
Here's Paul George, just 3 for 10 from the floor. He'll try this three-pointer, and he...
Step 3. So good.
George drives, floats it up, and it goes. George spots up for 3. Got it.
This guy's just too...
And look how hard George has to work. You can understand George 6 of 15 on one end. He's got to check. Harden on the other, going to get a layup here, though. Westbrook, good look at
Schroeder, and then the look up immediately to get Paul George that easy one.
George splashes home a step back 3.
Oh boy, he just, is this his, listen, he's...
Schroeder with the kick out. Paul George off target. Got it back and puts it in. Hit. George spot up 3. Buries it. Westbrook hit him in stride.
For the Thunder, who are playing for the first time since a 16-point road win against Phoenix on Friday night. Paul to point. Mid-range pull-up, Paul George.
He'll take that pull-up jump shot.
They're capitalizing on turnovers, and here's another one. Here is another one, and it's Paul George.
That's what's there. Yeah, looks like a different team right now.
Bench mob is helping to get it done as Paul George pulls the trigger and connects on a jumper. Was going to end with a Lorenzo Williams reference.
You can get the production on that.
Oh, Paul George.
And again, Marcus, passes that are too slow to get through the quickness of the defense by the Thunder.
Schroeder's going to get out of the way to give George one side of the floor to work against Cleveland and hits.
Dimes all night and all year.
We're used to usually seeing that go the other way, but that's
the start of something.
12-point advantage, 2 minutes to go, third quarter. George, fancy handle after he had given Dallas the lead. 95-93. Oh, quick stop and pop 3, Paul George.
Whoa.
Lead. 90 seconds to go in the game. ISO at the elbow, working on the bounce. Paul George over Barnes. That's good.
Good. George spins and floats it up and in.
3 kind of set Luka Doncic up, and watch out. Here we go.
George. A couple last night. Westbrook, boy, it looked like he had an angle to the rim. Instead, the ball comes back out to the perimeter. And George open on the catch fire 3, and another one for Paul George. George got off to such a hot start in that first quarter. Maybe get something going here in the third.
The basketball and forcing the pace, wound up with a high percentage shot. Unfortunately, Ball couldn't knock it down.
And that one misses. Quick outlet ahead to George. George gets past Hart, takes his time, lays it up.
Last year, he's a max player.
George jump. Double figures for JaVale McGee. George. Points. Bad pass stolen by Westbrook. Westbrook measures, throws it up for Paul George. Good unselfish play for his 6th assist. George catches, George drives. Nice step, bank shot is good. Pretty.
Often changing the pace.
George well beyond the arc. That's a 3. His first. George starting to catch fire. Stevenson all over George. Finally draws the foul. Shot's good and one.
And those two guys are good friends and play a lot against each other.
Teammates with the Pacers. A lot of playoff battles together in Indiana.
I'm sure a lot of practice battles also. And how about Westbrook playing the guitar? About Russell Westbrook averaging a triple-double and what he does every single night. And Luke Walton as a coach, and more importantly as a former player.
Work for JaVale McGee. George for 3. Meanwhile, OKC's missed their last 10 shots, and that streak ends as George nails
scoring in the half court. You're the Thunder, make this Laker team play half court out.
George to the rim, lays it up and in. George throws it up and out.
Look at Paul George too, Mike.
Oh, beautiful pass, and George with the slam.
George now with 9 of his 37 here in the fourth. And people forget this guy had a career threat.
I think it's in his nature to want to share it.
Catch and shoot three. Listening to the outside noise. He did a good job handling that in LA on Wednesday some high-level offense right now. Just the skill of guys like Paul George, Lillard, Westbrook, George falling away right on cue. Hacked by Turner. And
They're pretty good at what they do, and you're no longer taking the lead by surprise.
Paul George taking it to the rim and getting it to drop as he hits the deck. Team foul in Oklahoma City. Westbrook's second personal.
You know, he's always been a terrific scorer, but this guy has been
13 of 16 free throws his last 2 games coming into tonight. Went 1 of 2 on that last trip. George, man, just hangs forever. 4 and 7 of 10 coming into tonight. George scored. 3-time All-Star, first-team All-NBA a year ago. First returns on All-Star voting. The Thunder last year, averaging 28 per game. Portland swept the Thunder. In fact, as George with the rebound. Lob for Adams, who again was running the floor.
Dribbles in deep. George trailing. Lillard tonight 1 of 6 from 3, 17 points. George again off the screen for 3.
George got by Ariza. Yeah,
injury game too. That was his actually season debut.
Nice pass, better cut even.
Eyes on him.
George, nifty move, finds his open man. It's Westbrook. George drives, took a bump on the arm.
Even Adams. And the defensive numbers are pretty solid.
Automatic for Paul George.
To kind of dislodge that basketball.
George!
3, Bradley Beal with a hand in his face.
George, that's it.
Like that. I thought if Wiggins would be able to make that all night.
George off the feed from
Same thing. Contact.
Can George keep it alive? He does. Down low. Paul George in the corner. He'll try to line up the 3, and he does.
That shooting percentage is starting to come down a little bit for the Timberwolves.
George slides across the lane and got it. See if the Thunder go 2 for 1. George comes right back down. Follows his own miss. George lines it up and knocks it down. George faked right, went left.
Anthony Towns.
And making ridiculous big shots all night. George springs free and he comes back.
5.5 games separate teams 1 through 8. George with 2 to fire. Nice shot.
Here's Paul George in transition off the feed from Westbrook.
It's Paul George, that mid-range shot. Paul George created the contact.
All right, thanks, Nick. Pretty cool as Paul George certainly hasn't forgotten his roots and sort of honored it on his way into the
4 to play in the second quarter. George around the Adams screen and into Gasol.
Too easy. Too easy for Paul.
Get in there amongst the trees. That tees up another 3. Paul George.
Rare back to the basket players. Nice fadeaway.
Aldridge with 20. Beyond the arc tonight for San Antonio. Westbrook. George. Long 2. DeRozan was trying.
De distancia suelta y 3 con precisión.